Hey everyone, it's Dylan from the Black Forest Wood Company, and this week we're going to be building a pyramid-shaped console table. This client came to us with a very unique request for a console table that is basically an upside-down pyramid that will be notched into a solid steel base. So it took a lot of design and engineering on our part to try and figure out how we're going to construct this table and have it be stable, but also have it be a reasonable weight. Originally, when we started the design for this piece, our plan was to make it completely solid all the way through, and after calculating the weight, we kind of realized that it would be an unreasonably heavy piece for how big it is. So what we've opted for instead is 2-inch walnut to create all of the outside panels of this. So there's going to be 5 panels. We have 4 around the outside. Those are the angled sections of the pyramid. And then there's a final flat piece that's going to sit on the top. And the extra tricky part about this table is every angle is different in order to cut this and put it together properly. And you'll see that as we go on throughout this build. After we got that initial lamination done, we put the pieces through our thickness sander just to get them to that perfect dimension for thickness. And then before we start cutting our angles, we're just using the track saw to break some of these pieces down into more manageable pieces. And now you're seeing John begin to lay out the cuts for where we're going to put these angles on these slabs. So it took a lot of fine tuning on our sliding panel saw from SCM to really get this perfect. And every cut on here, John had to go back, change the angle of the blade, test his fit and measure. So it was a very, very tedious process. But as you can see, we wanted to fine tune that so we could get that perfect fit. And then once we have all of our angles cut and everything's fitting the way that we want it to, we can then begin laying out for the dominoes that will help us for the alignment in this glue joint. The dominoes here aren't going to give a ton of strength, especially since we're using the smaller size domino, but it is going to make our glue up a whole bunch easier. If we didn't add these dominoes in for the glue up, we'd essentially have all of these different panels wanting to slide around, and it probably wouldn't give a good product in the end. So once we've got that laid out, we can then take our domino, machine out those recesses where they'll go, and then do one more test fit before applying the glue and laminating everything together. And because we have no flat surfaces on the outside of this piece besides the top, we had to glue on clamping blocks essentially to the outside of these pieces. So we've put just masking tape over where we're going to need those clamping blocks, then we super glue everything into place. And that is what is going to allow us to get the clamping pressure we need to ensure that all of these joints close right up. And similar to the panels for this table, we're also using Titebond 3 to laminate all of them together. The boards themselves, like I said, are also done with Titebond 3, and the wood glue that we're using here is going to form a joint that's stronger than the wood itself. So even though we may have some conflicting grain here and angles, this isn't the biggest piece and these joints are going to be very strong, so we're not worried about any of the expansion and contraction causing issues on this pieces. Now that being said, if this piece was 20 feet long and 4 feet wide, there's going to be a lot more expansion and contraction going on, so you may have to take some different considerations into mind when doing that. And what you're seeing the team do here right now is essentially assembling the entire bottom part of this pyramid. So we want to have this all put together and firmly in place, and then the final step will be to lift this entire piece onto that top slab.
There we go. Top one's off a little bit.
It does have glue on it.
Yes.
Hey,
on our side.
Third one in. Third one in.
Yeah. We're good. There we go.
And here's that final top piece that I was mentioning earlier. So we have all of our domino holes ready going around the outside, and then we're just applying glue to this 2-inch perimeter. And you'll probably notice that the inside of this piece is unfinished, and there may even be some glue squeeze out. But because of the way we're building this piece, no one is ever going to see the inside of this table. We could have even put like a fun little Easter egg inside, like hidden something in there. Maybe we did. What do you think about the concept?
Well, I'm so happy to hear that Taylor Swift has decided to bring her tour to Canada, Toronto. I tried to get tickets, I couldn't. Haley was going to try and get tickets for me, I can't. I'm just concerned that it's probably going to cause like another earthquake, a recordable earthquake in the Toronto area when her concert, from the actual concert. It's something really to look forward to.
And then after we've let this piece cure up in the clamps for 24 hours, we can get all of those popped off and begin cleaning up the excess glue on the outside of this piece. And even with how hard we tried to get all of these joints 100% perfect, there still was a few small areas where we had some inconsistencies. So after we scrape all this glue off, as opposed to just putting wood filler in those, we machined some small wooden wedges that we pounded in and secured with super glue. And once all of those have been cleaned up and sanded off, we can then begin work on final sanding this piece up to 320 grit. Being that this piece is solid wood, you could probably get away with only sanding to 180 grit, but we find there is a bit of a benefit sanding higher because you see less of those sanding scratches. And the CA glue that we're using here is our Black Forest CA glue. So we offer a thin, medium, thick, a black, and also a wicking super glue, and as well as that activator you're seeing. And here is the moment of truth. We can finally test fit this piece onto the base and see if all of that work has paid off. And fortunately, all of our angles worked out really, really well. Something else that you'll notice here is the base is clearly not finished. So after we got this fit, we sent it back to the metal fabricator. They're going to do the final powder coat. And while they're working on that, we can begin applying the oil finish to this table. So we are going with an oil finish on this piece because it is going to maintain the most natural look and feel here. Alternatively, we could have used a sprayed acrylic urethane, but the downside to that is that it does form more of a protective shell over the piece, and it limits the amount of wood grain that you can see and feel. So like I mentioned earlier, since this isn't going to be any high traffic piece, we're applying the oil finish because that's what our client asked for. And because this client lived relatively close to us, we had the pleasure of going to personally set this piece up in her home. She lived out by Canmore in the Rocky Mountains. If you guys are from Alberta, you'll know that, but if not, it's a very beautiful little mountain town. So it was a nice day for a drive. We didn't mind one bit.
I could have done that.
Oh yeah.
That's what you did.
I'm gonna go up and over this.
Okay, which way are we rotating?
Towards the wall.
Okay.
Yep.
It's beautiful. I love it. It's exactly what I imagined. It's beautiful.
Although we didn't go with the solid construction that we originally planned for, this piece was still extremely heavy. I think it weighed like 300 or 400 pounds, partially because of the steel base. We didn't do steel tubing. We did solid 1-inch steel for stability. But after all that struggling and getting it flipped over, the big reveal is finally here. And I want to give a big thank you as well to our client for trusting us with this vision and also being so patient, because it did take us a little bit longer than we expected on this table. There was a lot of thought that went into it to make sure it was going to work. But in our opinion, it was well worth the wait. So please let us know what you guys think about this piece in the comments below. And let us know if you'd like to see us do more solid wood pieces like this in the future. So this client came to us with a very unique request.